Well, like clockwork in this part of the country, it stopped raining as soon as it started, and it's all over with, and the sun's probably about to come out. That's an interesting deal, but that's what goes on around here. If anybody's wondering how I like living in Central Arkansas, I absolutely hate it. This is the most backwards place I've ever seen in my entire life. I tried to get out of here and never could. Just to give you an example, I live in Bryant, Arkansas, which is a white flight suburb of Little Rock. And I live on one of the most popular roads here. That's not four lane, the most popular that's not four lane, and it's named after a senator that is known for beating up hookers and leaving them on the side of the road. The name of the road I live on is named after this senator, and a park that is less than a mile away from where I live is named after a senator that beat hookers. That's how ass backwards this place is. Tori Amos, Boys for Pele. I listened to this album a lot within the last few years because my daughter likes it. I played it at work a couple times, and some of the older folks actually knew what this was. And like I said in the earlier video, Tori Amos was somewhat popular when she wasn't super popular, but back in the grunge era when I was growing up, she was a breath of fresh air. This is a spectacular album. I would like to make a video talking about Tori Amos in a context that I don't want to talk about right here because it would be a different kind of video. This is really good. My daughter will listen to it, or at least she did for a time, and she would recite some of the words when she was younger, when she was maybe 5 years old. And she thought this was, she would talk about it maybe a little bit and how she liked it. I probably influenced her a little bit on that because I personally thought that, it's something that she should listen to. Here's one of the very, very few Latin albums that I found at Goodwill, and it's a best of El Gran Combo. It's some kind of matchup or mashup of songs that they did in the 60s. And I was looking on this. There's only a few songs that I really, really like on here. And the problem is the songs on this are just so short. Now, I would spend all day and all night listening to it for sure. But many of these songs didn't really even turn into anything that people recreated except for Ojos Chinos. And that's really about it. If I could pronounce some of these songs, I would. I can try El Caballero, and it's the word for ball, and I don't want to pronounce it because I'll butcher it. That's a good song. The first song, E Con Gana, that's a good song. But overall, this era of El Gran Combo is not something I go for. Do I like it? Yes. Could I listen to it all day long? Certainly. Could I listen to it? If that's all I had to listen to for a year, could I do it? Yeah, I could do it because I could dance to it. But at the same time, what this is stuff from when this salsa music, this trend of music was getting realized, when people were realizing what it was and how they could market it, and where it came from. I shouldn't say market because it's probably some of the least marketable music that you could find, but is the best, in my opinion, best music that you can possibly find. It's got everything wrapped up in it. I should do a video on that. I should do a video on why I like salsa music, and what the good stuff is and what the stuff that's not worthwhile and why it's not worthwhile and all that stuff. Funny thing about this is I wanted to make a video about El Gran Combo, and the problem with making that video is that the music that they came out with in the 60s, there are so many of those albums, and I don't know if I've listened to all of them. And it's not something that I normally pull for, but the stuff they made in the 70s and 80s is some of the best stuff out there, and it's got a poppy sense to it, so people tend to like it. When I lived in Florida, when I would go to clubs, I would always hear an El Gran Combo song. They're that popular. Or when I went to Latin clubs. Keith Jarrett, Charlie Hayden. Keith Jarrett is, a piano player that I like. He's on the ECM label. This is an ECM production, and ECM had these albums in the late 70s and 80s and probably into the 90s where they would take, and this does not show up well. This cover does not show up well on this phone. I would take it out. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. The Charlie Hayden was somebody that got famous with Ornette Coleman, and if anybody knows who the saxophone player Ornette Coleman is, I think Charlie Hayden actually found Ornette Coleman and told him, hey, you need to keep playing saxophone, because Ornette Coleman was an elevator operator that was ready to give up on the whole jazz scene. And Charlie Hayden actually understood, Ornette Coleman's music when nobody else did. I think that's the way that story goes. This ECM label, they do a lot of international jazz musicians, and they always have really, really small ensembles and really good production values. I don't always listen to that label because I don't always like the artists that are on there. Keith Jarrett is a piano player. He has a famous live album. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. It's a live album where he plays solo. And then I found another live, and I like that album. It's okay. It's got 20-minute long songs. It should be something that I really like, but then I just kind of find out that it's okay. But then I found another album of his at Goodwill that is in the same vein. That's a live album, and I can't remember the name of this one. Wish I could. It's the sacrifice of being on a video, but that I listened to that I actually really, really, really like. But the famous one I don't like nearly as much. What's the name of this? Jasmine. I listened to this a few times, and I thought it was good. But the music like this, you have to listen to it multiple times to actually get, because it is so in depth. I love Charlie Hayden's bass, but I particularly like bass in jazz music that has room to solo. I love the sound of a bass. I love the sound of bass soloing. Bass solos are some of the best things for whatever reason, and very few jazz people would agree with me. It's hard to listen to bass because you have to turn up the volume a lot of times. It has a really, the decay of the sound of the bass really jumps down quick. People look at it as something there to carry, the bass is something there to carry the rhythm. But I don't. I do, but at the same time, I want to listen to them solo. If you have a jazz group, there's 3, 4, 5 people sitting there playing in the jazz group. I think that the bass player should have a chance to do a solo. I think that they should have, if you got 5 songs, every song's about 8 minutes long. I think that there should be a jazz solo on 3 or 4 of those songs. I think it should be 1 or 2 minutes long and have time to materialize. They're there, right? I mean, they're there to play. They're there to show their art. They're there to be part of something. So I think that they should have the opportunity to play. Here's another Frank Zappa. The problem with Frank Zappa CDs, and it comes to fruition with this a lot, this particular album, the name of it's Weasels Ripped My Flesh. If you don't know who Frank Zappa is, he always has weird names to his songs, weird names to his albums, weird album covers. He's trying to be funny, which he comes off as funny. I think he's the only person that could probably ever get away with what he got away with. When it comes to that, the songs are kind of sound like he's kind of, and he inspired Weird Al Yankovic, but his songs are like 10% Weird Al Yankovic. They're just kind of all over the place. This particular album has the best blues song I've ever heard in my life. It has Jean-Luc Ponty playing the violin. Can't remember the name of it. Don't have my glasses on, and now I cannot. Directly from My Heart to You, I think is the name of it. Jean-Luc Ponty is a violin player. I don't listen to a lot of blues. That is by far the best blues song I've ever heard in my entire life. Jean-Luc Ponty is the violin player, plays most of the song, and it is out of this world. I mean, the licks that he's playing, what he's doing just sounds amazing. Is this, one of my favorite Frank Zappa CDs? It's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's not my favorite, but it's really good, and at the same time, Uh, I would say the what I get back to what I was saying earlier about Frank Zappa is that it's a mashup. You know, all his songs. There's normally not a particular theme to the album. He throws on live stuff. He incorporates some of the live stuff that he's played live into a studio recording because he likes the way it sounds. All that's fine, but you know, it's the albums are disjointed. There's jazz on here. There's very progressive jazz, just with no tonality to it on here. There's live stuff, there's studio stuff, there's blues, there's pop. I mean, it's just all over the place. So if you're in the mood for listening to something poppy, you know, you'd only have one or two songs to listen to. You couldn't listen to the whole album. And I'm a stickler for wanting to listen to the entire album. What's this say on here? Weasels rip my flesh. Some of the stuff has funny stuff that he says on the album covers. I'm already at 11 minutes. What am I going to do? Make this a three-parter? Morrissey. Morrissey came from the Smiths. This is a really, really good album just to listen to, the ambience of it. I cannot read. You know, I probably should be wearing my glasses. I never wear my glasses. It's very Smith sounding. It's very Morrissey sounding. It's typical of him. But, you know, the ambience of what music he puts out is what turns me on. When it's poppy, people like to listen to it. I can take it to work and listen to it, or I can play some of it and listen to it. You know, I've probably frequently listened to the Smiths at work because other people can stand it. Sonny Rollins, The Bridge. I'm trying to open these up, and it's hard to open up with one hand. When I had bought this album, made probably in the late '90s, I thought it was one of the greatest things I'd ever heard. Listening to it now, it's you know, it's it's a really good album, but at the same time, it's Sonny Rollins, Jim Hall, Bob Cranshaw, Ben Ridley. Jim Hall's a guitar player. Do I really think Jim Hall's all that great of a guitar player? Yeah, but do I really like guitar and jazz? Not really, not so much. And I haven't listened to this album in years. When I did originally buy it, I thought it was spectacular. I listened to it over and over and over again. This is one of the albums that probably helped to develop the way I listen to music because it was so early on that I listened to this. Sonny Rollins is one of my favorite players, but at this point in my life, this is not one of my favorite albums. I don't remember. It's hard to say exactly why because I haven't heard it in years. It's just maybe uninspired. I'm at 13 minutes. I may just stop in a second and figure out what I want to do with the rest of this. Steaming with the Miles Davis Quintet. You know, these are the famous 4 or 5 albums that he made for Prestige Records that he just kind of had to throw together in a couple days. And then they turn out just being some of the most iconic jazz albums of all times. Out of those 4 or 5 albums, this one's not my favorite. My favorite is Cookin'. You know, it's got the famous John Coltrane on it. It's got Red Garland, Paul Chambers on bass, Philly Joe Jones on drums. Philly Joe Jones was a mainstay of kind of Blue Note Prestige Records. As a drummer, he probably plays on like 200 albums. I mean, he must have went from one gig to another just playing on albums, but he's nice sounding. Red Garland is a great piano player. Probably the underrated person out of this whole group is Red Garland because not a lot of people talk about him anymore. Paul Chambers, the bass player, is great, and he got famous off of this, and he was able to make some solo albums. And, like I say from earlier, bass playing's really nice and bass soloing's really nice. And when you're a bass player and you have a solo album, you can play solos, right? And you can play leads. And he has one called Whims of Chambers that is really, really good. Like I say, I like a good bass solo, and he plays on there. And he gets to show off what he can do on bass. Look at this cat. This cat finally chilled. Oh, I better not pet her. Yesterday, she came over here and tried to knock down all the stuff I have. Cats are good at doing that. Cats are good at seeing something that's out of place and then putting that on the floor. Guitaro. This is ambience music. I've heard people say they don't like Guitaro. Do I have this upside down? No, I don't. I've heard people say that they don't like Guitaro. You know, music enthusiasts say that they don't like Guitaro. I've heard some people say it's the best stuff that they've ever heard. It's ambient music. It's what people call new age. And it's, you know, something you want to listen to when you're just chilling, right? Mother's Milk, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Don't remember what this sounds like. Bought it because, probably just because it was Red Hot Chili Peppers. Do I like Red Hot Chili Peppers? Do I not like them? You know, they kind of, they're cliche in a way where they're kind of a turnoff. Morpheus, Tales of a Thousand Lakes. This is a famous metal album. I don't know what this sounds like. I bought it. People talk about Morpheus like it's the greatest thing on earth, and it may be. I never got a chance to listen to it. I wish I did. You know, I wish I had time, but you know, people talk about it and whatnot. I don't know what this is. I picked this up. I don't know what this is. Okay, go. I need to give it a listen. Here's another metal album, Enemy of God by Creator. I've listened to this quite a few times and I don't like it. Early Creator was what I like. This is more fast and just doesn't sound like the early 80s stuff. This is maybe a 2000, it says 2005, so it's actually a lot older than I thought it was. But I listened to this and the songs don't sound as raunchy as they did in the 80s. The album Endless Pain comes to mind. The album that came right after that, I can't think of the name of it, but it's my favorite. And Creator is one of these thrash metal bands that when I listen to it, I hear a little bit of death metal in it. It's got thought out. They have, you know, in the 80s they had thought out music, longer type solos, a lot of guitar. The singing was growly, but not death metal growly, and I thought it was really good. I listened to this and I thought it was just uninspired. Is it bad? Could I listen to it a lot? Probably, but it's nowhere as nearly as good as that 80s stuff. Here's a Sublime I picked up, live Sublime that I never listened to. When I was in high school, this Sublime was super popular, and you know, I listened to it and I like some of the stuff when you listen to it, and when I listen to it now, I just think, wow, this stuff is just super, you know, poppy and really just catering to the masses. But I still like it because it holds a place in the history of my life that, you know, that lands in a spot that gives me some nostalgia. Well, this video is 18 minutes long, so I kind of went in the middle of what I wanted to do because yesterday I didn't talk as much about the CDs that I had, and that had bothered me, but then I maybe spent too much time talking about these. But that means that I'll be able to make more videos and post more videos because eventually I'll run through these. But at the same time, you know, I would rather be doing other stuff for this. And like I said yesterday, I have a plan for that where I can talk about the stuff that I really, 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 really like, because this stuff is just, you know, I wouldn't say it's mean or anything like that. It's just not something, if I was listening to a bunch of music, this is not what I would, if I had my choice, this stuff would get thrown away and then I would listen to the Latin stuff, or some of the jazz stuff is really good, but a lot of it would get thrown away and I would just sit around and listen to Latin music all day. But I don't want to do that. I want to broaden my horizons. 90% of the stuff that I listen to, yes, is Latin, but you know, any type of music that is thought out, inspired, even if it doesn't have the greatest of musicianship, it still means something to me. So, and it, you know, it's a piece of art that I'm having a hard time finding my words, but it's a piece of art that I want to be a part of or listen to or have some kind of opinion on. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.